Firstly, I'll give an overview of school admissions. School admissions are split into two quite distinct categories. We have the normal admissions round and we have in-year transfers. We deal with around 15,000 applications per year. And in the case of community and voluntary controlled schools, the local authority is the admission authority and is therefore responsible for reaching decisions on the offer or refusal of a place at community VC schools. In the case of academies, foundation, free or voluntary aided schools, the governing body or the Academy Trust is the admission authority for those schools, and decisions on whether an offer or refusal of a school place are the responsibility of those governing bodies. However, all offers and refusals are communicated to parents and are issued by the school admissions team, irrespective of the type of school that's applied for. So parents will all make their applications through the local authority school admissions team, and we will coordinate with schools and then feed that response back on the outcomes to parents. So moving on to the normal admissions round. What we mean by the normal admissions round are those schools that start school at the normal point of intake. So for example, our September intake for reception. For some middle schools, that will be year 5. For other middle schools, for example, in Evesham, that will be year 6. And then we have year 7, 8 and 9 in parents and via the Worcestershire County Council website, and we currently have around about 98% of parents or carers that use this facility to apply. But parents or carers can also contact the Worcestershire Hub to obtain a paper application form. So for those that do require it, there is a form available for them. In terms of guidance and support for parents and carers in relation to the application process, that can be provided by a number of different points. We have the Worcestershire Hub, the school admissions team, and also Sendias can provide some independent advice and support as well. It's really important that we emphasise that there are national closing dates for the normal admissions round, and for high schools that is the 31st of October every year, and for the first primary and middle school applications that's the 15th of January every year, and those dates are set in legislation. They don't change. It is that date every year. In terms of late applications for the normal admissions round, the importance of making an application on time, we really cannot stress enough. This year, more than any other, has highlighted to us the huge impact that making a late application can have on those most vulnerable of children and families. Late applications can only be considered after those that are received on time, unless the admission arrangements specify otherwise. And this does then therefore place those children applying late at a disadvantage. And in some instances, what can happen is that in areas where place availability is more limited, some of the most vulnerable families applying late cannot be accommodated in their local schools. And in some cases, they've not been able to attend the same schools as their siblings. And I think it's really important for everyone to get this message out and look to see how we can actually support those children and families in making their applications. And there are a number of things that partners can do to assist with that. It's really important that we raise awareness within the communities that we all work with, to help families understand that they do need to make an on-time application. We need to promote the importance of applying. There is no automatic right to a place simply because your child might attend a nursery, you live in catchment, or you have feeder siblings already at a particular school, or you attend a feeder school. There is no automatic placing. Everyone has to apply. We need to ensure that families understand the implications of making a late application, and that this could actually mean that they could miss out on a place at the school of their preference that older siblings already go to. Social care colleagues can assist us greatly in assuring that those children who are subject to child protection plans or children in need are fully supported as part of their plans, and that families and schools are transition planning for the next phase of education for children, particularly the most vulnerable, and to build that into that transition planning, making sure parents are aware they need to apply for places. Schools will understand who exactly their vulnerable learners are and how they can support families in ensuring that they make on-time applications. And schools are a key partner in spreading the message within the school communities and ensuring that the most vulnerable children are supported through that transition family. We can offer support or signpost those families that might have learning difficulties, language or literacy difficulties, and that is really important. Guidance and support can be found, as I said, through the Worcestershire Hub, through the school admissions team, through SENDIAS, but we really need the assistance of our key partners out there spreading the message to all of the families that they work with about the need to think about the education and the transition to the next stage. In terms of the process then for normal admissions, or what is termed as normal admissions, parents can either apply online or on paper, and then what will then happen after the national closing date is that the school admissions team will then import and data check the information that's coming in through the parents' applications. We'll send the application information for children who have education healthcare plans over to SEND. Children in care or previously in care, we'll be checking the data on that to ensure that we've got the right information. Catchment area routines will be run and distance routines run. And we then exchange application data files with other local authorities. We then send ranking lists out to each own admission authority school. For those, so those schools will be made aware of every single child who's made an application for their school, and they will then have to rank that list of children in line with their published admission arrangements. So in preparation for the offer day then, own admission authority schools will then return to us a ranking list of children in order of priority in line with their admission arrangements. And we will then run what we call offer routines to ensure that actually only one offer is made per child. Data files with other local authorities. And once we've exchanged that data and again removed duplicate offers so that there's only one offer of a child, we will then send all receiving schools a list of the children who are allocated places ready for September at their schools. And at the same time, we'll also send all of the schools that the children are leaving a list of the children who are leaving, and we'll notify them what their destination schools are. And then on the national offer day, emails and posted offers will then be sent out to parents and carers. In terms of the outcomes then, where a place is offered, the school should then begin their admission arrangements in preparation for a September start using the list of allocated children that we've sent them. If a child who is expected to arrive in the September intake does not arrive, then the school would begin their reasonable investigations to ascertain where the child is. If a place has been refused, parents are given the right to appeal against that decision, and also information about how to go onto a waiting list. And schools will be dealing with the requests to go onto waiting lists and compiling those, and they have to be prioritised in line with the oversubscription criteria. The parent will be required to put their request in writing directly to the admission authority, and if they're appealing, state the reasons for their appeal. And then the admission authority must then arrange for an independent appeal panel hearing. And some schools will have service level agreements to do that with the Legal and Democratic Services appeals team at Worcestershire County Council. If a place can be offered from the waiting list, the school should contact school admissions to let them know that a place can be offered, and school admissions will send out the offer letter to the parent. And what we will also do is coordinate with other affected schools. So that child will already have an offer of a school place elsewhere. And what we need to make sure is that if a school is offering a place from a waiting list, we notify the school that the child already has an offer at, that actually that place is no longer required, and they may then have a vacancy to be able to offer from their waiting list. So it's really important that coordination continues. It doesn't just end after the offers have been made. We then come on to in-year transfers. These are children who are making application outside of the normal admissions round. So for, and there may be in to move academic career. It could be a change of care placement, it could be a house move, it could be a child returning from elective home education, or it could be a child that's been missing from education, etc. This type of application can happen at any point in the year. And school admissions coordinate all in-year applications for Worcestershire schools, and will also follow up with those schools to ensure that the outcomes are made in a timely way. The in-year application form is available on the Worcestershire County Council website at the school admissions links, and that form should be returned directly to school admissions. And school admissions will coordinate with all of the preferred schools in the same way that we would do for the normal admissions round, again to ensure that only one offer of a school place is made, and that will be to the highest preference that can possibly be made. Again, when we look at outcomes for in-year applications, where a place is offered, school admissions will issue an offer letter. We'll copy the current school, and we'll also copy the new school, so that all parties are aware of the actual transfer that is likely to happen shortly. Other preferred schools will also be notified if a place at their school is actually no longer required. Parents are then advised to contact the new school directly to arrange a mutually convenient start date, and the parent and school will begin their induction arrangements. If a child that is expected does not arrive when they are expected, again, schools will begin their reasonable investigations to ascertain where that child is. If a place is refused to the parent, the parents will be given the right to appeal against the decision and how to go on to waiting lists. And this again needs to be done directly to the admission authority for the school, stating their reasons for the appeal. And the admission authority must then arrange for an independent appeal panel hearing to be heard again. Very similar to the normal admissions round process. If a letter can be offered from the waiting list, again, schools should contact school admissions, who will send out the offer letter on their behalf and will coordinate with any other affected schools. And coordination continues throughout the year. So if vacancies do occur, notify us who it is that needs to get that place, and we'll coordinate with any other the parent and any other schools involved as well. If a child has no school offer and is not on the roll of a local school, then school admissions will ask the parent for additional preferences and will also consult with those schools too. And if the outcome at the end of it is that there is no school that can offer a place to the child and the child remains unplaced, school admissions will then escalate a referral through to a fair access area panel. And the fair access protocol will then be used to place those children. So I move on to fair access then. The purpose of the Fair Access Protocol is essentially set in legislation. Legislation requires every local authority to have a fair access protocol to ensure that outside of the normal admissions round, unplaced children, particularly the most vulnerable, are offered a place at a suitable school as quickly as possible. The protocol is there to ensure that no school, including those who have spaces, is asked to take a disproportionate number of children who have been excluded from other schools or who may have challenging behaviour. Fair access is triggered when the parent of an eligible child has not secured a place under the in-year admissions procedures. All admission authorities have a legal duty to participate in the Fair Access Protocol in their area to ensure that children are placed quickly. Where a school is recognised as having a high proportion of children with challenging behaviour, which is defined in the protocol, the governing body can refuse to admit a child that meets the definition of challenging behaviour set out in the protocol, but only if that school already has a high proportion of children with challenging behaviour. Fair access does not apply to certain groups of children because the legislation requires that these children must be admitted, and they include a child or young person that is either in the care or accommodated by a local authority, a child or young person who was previously in care or accommodated by a local authority, children and young people who have previously been in state care outside of England and may have ceased to be in state care as a result of being adopted, and children or young people with an education healthcare plan. So those specific groups of children are not included in fair access because the legal expectation is that all of those children will be admitted to the schools they're applying for. We did review the protocol as part of the annual admission arrangements consultation for the academic year 2020. A full public consultation exercise was undertaken on fair access arrangements in Worcestershire, and all responses to that consultation were fed back to the Cabinet of Worcestershire County Council. The Cabinet approved a new fair access protocol for Worcestershire schools, and this became effective for any in-year admissions applications made from the 1st of June 2020 onwards for September places, and is linked in with the in-year coordinated scheme for Worcestershire residents. The information on the coordinated scheme and fair access can all be found at the following link if you'd like to have a look at the documentation there. Some really useful information. In terms of the protocol procedures and documentation, the protocol itself acknowledges the need for vulnerable young people who are seeking a school place to be dealt with quickly and sympathetically. It aims to reduce the time that those children spend out of school. It's there to ensure that schools admit pupils, including those with challenging needs, on a fair and equitable basis, that the process is fair and transparent. It's there to ensure that all schools accept a fair and equitable share of pupils. It clearly sets out a definition of what is meant by challenging behaviour, and this is evidence-based and is tied in with evidence of the graduated response. So in order for a child to be classed as challenging in Worcestershire, there has to be evidence that the advice of a range of professionals has been sought in order to support the child, and that the advice from professionals has been put in place, but despite this, the challenging behaviour continues. There's a recognition that schools are more likely to have a significantly higher proportion of children with challenging behaviour, or those that have previously been permanently excluded, if the school's socio-economic data in English indices of deprivation indicates a higher level of deprivation than most of the schools in the fair access area panel. And it's introduced the use of a weightings grid for each fair access area panel for them to use as a tool to ensure that children are placed in an objective way and that all schools admit children using the protocol. In terms of the information that feeds that weighting grid, there are various different bits of data that are required for that weighting grid, which include children who have been placed through fair access, who have come into school, and those children who were fair access children who moved out of school, as well as managed moves that move into school and managed moves that move out. It also collects data on in-year admissions into the school or in-year admission transfers out of school. It also takes into account permanent exclusions of children who've been permanently excluded leaving a school, but also awards a weighting for permanently excluded children that a school admits. And it also uses the numbers on roll to work out the percentages across each school of children in various categories. The in-year admissions data is collected from the leavers and joiners forms that all schools complete on the Children's Services portal. And all of that data is then fed into the weightings grid, which is then circulated to panels prior to their meetings for them to use as a tool when placing children. This then brings us on to what we are now looking to introduce to Worcestershire. We don't currently have one, is a managed move protocol for Worcestershire schools. Managed moves are a fantastic tool that can be used to try and avoid a permanent exclusion. Currently, each area across the county has their own arrangements in place for dealing with the process, and that can be different across each school or different areas. The weightings grid itself recognises that such arrangements are in place, but there's no standard procedure at the moment. And this then gives us the opportunity to create a Worcestershire Managed Move protocol that would be recognised county-wide and would provide a consistent approach, consistent process to ensure that all schools, parents and children's experience of managed moves are consistent across the county. It creates a clear good practice model to ensure successful managed moves with documented evidence of the steps that have been taken, that there's been review, the issue has been reviewed, and that outcomes then feed fair access to ensure that there are consistent and accurate decision-making process when at panel. And that has actually come to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send them in via the Microsoft forms that you will be provided with in order to respond, and we'll look at all of any questions that you have. Thank you very much.